Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour. Select the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker from audio settings. If necessary, join the webinar using your phone. Use the Q&A panel to share your questions. This webinar is being recorded. Attendees will receive the recording. Let's tune in.
Hey, hello everyone. A warm welcome to all of you joining us today for this Power Hour. It's my pleasure to host this topic where we're going to talk about what buyers need and specifically from an HR tech perspective and how AI accelerates it. So either helping product people build AI faster or come up with innovative features that cater to buyers, HR tech buyers or HR users requirements. And this particular topic, we want to look at it from the lens of both product management, like how technology companies are building software, and as well as also how end customers or HR buyers are consuming this and their readiness to shift and change in terms of this evolving and dynamic environment out there. A quick intro about myself. My name is Shrikant Pattathil, President and Chief Technology Officer at Harbinger Group. My passion primarily is to help companies build innovative solutions, come up with new product ideas using some of the latest technologies like cloud, AI, and so forth. I've been doing this over 2 years now. Harbinger Group, our main focus or motto is to transform the way people work and learn through our services as well as our products and partnerships. It's my privilege to host this session today on this topic of this buyer need and how users are adapting AI and when it comes to HR technology. And I have a great set of panelists here, both from the product side as well as from the HR tech use side. I'll introduce them in due course. And I want to ask them quite a few, pinpointed questions as well. But before I do that, let me just give you a quick idea of how we are planning to do this session, what are the things we are going to cover, and, some of the trends out there when it comes to this specific topic. Starting with, how are we going to structure this session? Of course, the topic is vast, so we probably cannot cover everything in the next 45 minutes to an hour, but we'll try to cover as much ground as possible. So what we have observed is with the speed at which technology is changing today, it's hard for buyers to keep pace with and consuming new tech as they're released in the market and so forth. And they have variety of needs, requirements, changes that they have to cater to. At the same time, technology companies are out there innovating at a very high speed and essentially assuming at times how users are going to consume software or use it and trying to do their best to solve their business problems at scale. So there's this tension between buyer and selling technology. So we'll discuss that, and in the context of AI, how that even amplifies the problem. We will also look at, of course, what advantages AI brings to the table, what are the things it powers, which was not possible earlier. So we'll cover that as well. And what are the places where the right interventions or the right outcomes can be driven when it comes to using HR technology or AI software. Going a little bit deeper, I wanted to share a little bit of market kind of insights before we dive into a discussion and hear different points of view. What we have been hearing in the industry over the last year and a half is, can AI drive outcomes, and therefore, can when users, when they're using software, they pay as per not the traditional seat based or consumption based, but more outcome based? Does AI and AI tech kind of enable that? And when you see softwares like customer service, recruitment, probably it's possible, because you can measure what exactly the outcomes are being driven. But when it comes to other areas of HR, be it learning, benefits, uh, you know, payroll, and other core HR things, whether it's really possible to do outcome based or even consumption based. But from a when people are changing software or adapting new software, that's their inherent question, saying that, okay, how can we link it to more and make it more performance based? I'm sure we'll discuss that in more detail. But that's a trend out there in terms of uh, buyers wanting to see more outcomes when they're looking for new software that they're buying. The second important point I think which we need to address is about the tension between the software providers and the buyer organizations. Now, uh, with AI, you can of course do things much more faster. However, you have to also think about it from the buyer perspective. If whatever AI features we are releasing or AI assisted engineering we are doing, there are governance mechanisms that they have, using which they can adopt the software at the same pace that we are able to build. Secondly, uh, you know we see in the market there are a lot of demos out there when it comes to AI features or new features out there, because the speed at which we can develop now is increased essentially. But the question, when you look at it from the buyer's perspective, is again, are we clearly showing the ROI or the metrics? And if not, will those demos probably just stay as demos? Uh, the other important thing that we also realize is most of the software, even if there is high claims of it being autonomous, there is a human intervention necessary. And therefore, the claims that we make from to a HR tech buyer or a leader out there say that it's fully autonomous, but they still have to spend on both human resources as well as technology. Is that going to be a problem eventually? Therefore, they're not just looking at incremental features when they're looking to change software or adopt new things, but they are looking at really measurable benefits. And finally, we as a technology providers or builders, we may be very quick in terms of releases, changing software, adapting to new things, be it technology or processes and stuff like that. However, from a buyer standpoint, it could cause a fatigue in terms of having to learn or do things differently, every other week or every month. So, and even if it's autonomous, changing their processes to be able to adapt that. So I think those are the kind of challenges that are out there, and we'll cover, like I mentioned, some of them in our discussion. And finally, one point I wanted to cover here that we have experienced over the last 8 to 12 months is that um, this whole dilemma about do you users want pure AI native products? That means completely revamp their experience of how they do or consume, let's say, a recruitment software or a learning software, it completely conversational based, and there's nothing else, that it's all conversations for all interactions. Does that really work? Or users prefer like a mix, like they want all the traditional stuff, and they want AI as an add-on or like a workflow that sits on top of it. So there are different views. AI first companies or AI first apps will say that, the old way of doing is no longer there. But are they missing on thinking of user adoption and user change management enough? Because you can build the software, but if the users are not able to use it, then how are we going to do that? But there could be certain workflows that, for example, or certain use cases where conversational use interface or AI first kind of an approach from a product standpoint makes a lot of sense. So of course, I will ask those questions to our panelists very soon. But I thought I'll give you a perspective of, what are we going to talk about and, cover in terms of what we are seeing from a trends perspective. So on that note, without waiting any further, let me bring in both our panelists, starting with Christian Dwyer, Chief Product Officer, Careerminds. Christian, thanks for being a part of this Power Hour. If you can please introduce yourself and also tell us, what excites you about this particular topic.
Yeah. Thanks, Shrikant. So hello, everybody. I'm Christian Dwyer. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Careerminds. Careerminds actually, just to give everybody a sense, Careerminds is actually both it has an enterprise business focused on the HR tech and human capital services space, particularly around providing outplacement services and as our primary basically offering. And then we also work with enterprises on job architecture, career frameworks, and basically skills development within organizations. And so we're going to be mostly focused on that side. On the other side of our business, we actually run a consumer business and operate brands like Resume.io and Career.io. And there's a really important intersection in our basically architecture where those two things come together to power basically a stronger value proposition for consumers or participants in the case of basically our outplacement services. I think what excites me about this topic and this space right now is that we absolutely see AI changing the way in which organizations think about getting to value quicker. AI is establishing processes that allow us to actually learn faster, get to results quicker, and actually starts to makes organizing content in a way like inferring skills from messy data or normalizing job architectures or mapping skills to roles. And I think the idea of it's no longer about titles as we go forward here. It's becoming a very skills-based economy, if you will. And I think that's a really important area that I think AI is going to continue to help support and evolve. And then how do we support these employees along their career progression in terms of actually developing the skills, learning the skills that are needed to actually do the job in the new basically ecosystem that we're all faced with. Every one of us is faced with this new way of working. So,
thanks, Christian, for the introduction and also sharing what excites you about this particular topic. And I think we'll dig a little bit deeper in this whole skills-based point that you mentioned. Let me now welcome my other panelist, Neville Postwalla, VP Talent Management at Harbinger Group. Neville, if you can please introduce yourself and also tell us what excites you about this particular topic.
Thanks, Shrikant. Thanks for having me here. I head HR at Harbinger, and like I tell people, I have a very simple role, and that role is to make everybody happy, which isn't that simple. So that's in a nutshell about me. But I think this topic is interesting, particularly for me, because HR folks, head of HRs, are kind of under a fair amount of pressure to kind of show value quickly in different aspects, whether it's talent acquisition or engagement or experience. because the old models of, long implementation, slow adoption, are passé. They just don't work anymore. And I think with the advent of AI, we have a new opportunity for us. And that allows us to accelerate, very, very fast. So we can actually start seeing insights, instead of months, we can start seeing insights in weeks. And I think for someone who has seen this firsthand, I've seen this firsthand in performance management. I've seen it in learning. I've seen it in hiring workflows at Harbinger. I'm pretty keen to understand how HR tech providers can actually start delivering faster outcomes. We see new features coming in very, very frequently, but not outcomes. So I'd be interested to see how HR tech providers can start sharing how they can give faster outcomes. And I think that's something that I'm kind of interested in, this topic of HR tech and the role of AI.
Yeah, thanks, Neville. And I think we would like probably to hear if you have done any experiments, examples of that as we go along. So,
Sure.
so that'll be really interesting to hear from actually somebody who's using the software that everybody, people like us and Christian's building.
Yep.
So, starting, Christian, with my first question to you, where we talked a little bit, we touched about outcomes in the initial part. Um, what are your thoughts on the outcome-based pricing when it comes to HR technology? Are you seeing customers or prospects asking for the same when it comes to the products that you're building?
Yeah, so the answer is just generally yes. I mean, like to Neville's point, like there people want to actually pay for basically the performance as opposed to the license of software. But I think that the expectations do vary along the context, the what is considered an outcome,
Mm.
and what is the risk ownership between the vendor and the customer in terms of who owns the outcome. So, overall, I would say, we expect that basically buyers would ask more about outcome based, particularly because AI creates the expectation of a faster, more measurable impact, right? Um, but that said, not all outcomes are necessarily created equally. And it really depends on on what you're really talking about in terms of an outcome. Not all outcomes are fully controlled by the vendor, in this case, us, to our HR customers. I'll give you an example. So Careerminds, we consider ourselves already an outcome-based pricing model in the sense that customers don't pay for a seat license to our product or basically a shelfware license to our product, but they only pay when a participant who's been displaced by a reduction in force program at a particular customer activates the program and they begin to work with basically our coaches, right, in our outplacement service. So they're really paying for the customers paying for real engagement in the delivery of services to us. And so interesting, the outcome, you would think like, well, shouldn't the outcome be to guarantee job placement? We can't guarantee job placement because job placement is influenced by so many other factors, right? The job market conditions, the individual skills and their experience, their commitment and willingness to engage, and even their personal networks. Like, how do they leverage their personal networks? We know that basically finding a new job when you've been displaced is as much about leveraging your network as it is about actually applying for jobs and through the traditional sets. And so our responsibility in the way we price Careerminds has been to deliver high quality coaching and really AI tools, which we can talk about downstream here, and then the guidance to materially help our customers and our participants be ready and take advantage of the opportunities that they're presented with. So it's more of a shared success model as opposed to like us being us in our basically business context. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Interesting, you say that you already moved a step ahead from saying that it's not a seat-based license. It's only
Right.
when people activate something and they engage with the software, that's
Right.
when you know, mm, Do you see that happening with other software? Like if I have an HR software, I buy it for 1,000 people and my people just don't go there. So I don't have to pay until that. But because, yeah, I mean, if there are AI companies out there or new companies out there who bring that pricing model, it can be quite challenging for existing people because they'll lose a lot of revenue to.
Yeah, yeah. In our case, we're very performance-based, basically service, right? Our job is to engage with those participants who have actually been unfortunately displaced by a reduction in force strategy at an organization. And our job is to actually try to help those folks actually get back into into the workforce as quickly as possible. And so we believe that our whole program is really a performance-based program to begin with. So I think we're in a unique position in this regard, as opposed to us selling like HRIS stuff
True.
or ATS, which I think is a very different type of licensing model.
Understood. Understood. Yeah, I understand. I mean, we need to also take in context of the product at times.
Yeah,
It cannot be
yeah,
always. Yeah, makes sense.
yeah.
Neville, let me bring you in and ask, pose this question to you about, uh, where is your current mindset in terms of, do you prefer currently outcome-based pricing or completely against fixed subscriptions? And if there is any such bias, why? Or is there a shift that is happening? What are your thoughts from a actual buying standpoint?
Yeah, Shrikant, I think that both the models, outcome-based and fixed subscription, both have their plus and minuses depending on the situation. But if I were to be given a chance, I would probably start with a combination of maybe a hybrid pricing model, one that combines, outcome and a fixed subscription. And I'll tell you why I feel that way. I feel that way because many times we hear tall stories about AI solutions, that they provide rapid value. But
Mm,
sometimes many of us have seen that maturity curve of AI adoption, especially in HR tech, is kind of it's growing, but it's kind of uneven. You know, AI can accelerate, hiring, suggest learning needs, provide nudges to coaches, but I think the effectiveness of that outcome is really dependent on the data quality that is used by AI,
mm,
the model, to make these insights. And another one is the level of change of acceptance and adoption within that particular organization who's buying that tool. And very importantly, the behavior of the person who's going to consume this. So
mm,
if you just say that, with so many dependencies or variables, if you just purely have it as an outcome, just like Christian said, pay if only the outcomes are achieved, then I think at some point it can be unfair, for the vendor and the customer partnership. But then on the other hand, just a pure play fixed subscription doesn't make sense to me because it doesn't show the power of AI.
mm,
So today, I'm just not buying software. I want speed. I want faster decisions. So when I'm confident about the quality of data that's being used, the acceptance of AI usage in my organization, the bias, very less bias or no bias, that's when I would start moving my pricing model from the first one to more towards to the outcome based. So it would be a combination of both, and I think it would progress more towards outcome based because I think it's not only about the impact, but it's also about the usage that's there. And I think it also boils down to money. So if I were to go to my CFO and I could justify my investment, for example, if I were to go to my CFO and tell my CFO that AI based performance reviews reduces the manager time by say 30-40%, and this time can actually be used by the project manager for better customer engagement, for upskilling or stuff like that. Or if I can tell my CFO that, I'll have AI coach my employees better to write better quality code. And that downstream I can quantify to show that it results in better on-time delivery, better quality. I think the CFO would be more inclined to listen to me. So a combination of both, gravitating more towards outcome based is what I would say.
Okay. So it's like it's you're in that journey. It's not like either or as well. And of course, what you're mentioning is there's a lot of organizational readiness also that is
Absolutely.
necessary
Yeah.
before you ask for something like that.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense.
Shrikant, one of the things I think about a little bit on this topic is like, if you just think about how the LLMs themselves are basically pricing their services, it's all consumption based, right?
Mm.
So it's like it's based on the number of tokens that you're using and the number of the utilization of it, not necessarily outcomes. So at the core, right, where you're actually gaining access to the AI and through the LLMs, it's mostly priced based on consumption as
Correct.
opposed to outcomes.
Yeah, I think the shift from seat-based to consumption-based is actually probably more happening today, and the
Yeah,
outcome probably is a little further out. And
I
yeah,
think that's true.
makes sense. Makes sense. That brings me, Christian, to the next question, where I want you to wear your product management hat and say that there are a lot of these existing SaaS providers, beats they're in the software business for last 15, 20 years, cloud providers and so forth. And they see that there is a challenge from pure AI native companies out there. So what do you think, will be the future? Will be these companies probably will be able to adopt and add on AI features into their products and be successful, or unless they kind of completely redefine themselves as an AI native company, they will probably succeed and also, is there any strategy that Careerminds right now is adopting or leaning towards? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like my immediate reaction to that is no. Pre-AI platforms do not have to redefine or rebrand themselves as AI native applications. However, I do think that every technology platform that's out there needs to be really honest about where AI fundamentally changes how value is delivered to their customers. It would be incredibly short-sighted to think that you don't have to address that. And for all that it can actually add to basically what Neville talked about, which is time to value, basically better and faster insights, better engagement, et cetera, et cetera. I do believe it's important and appropriate for users to bring or customers to bring or even platforms to bring AI features in as add-ons, so long as those features are meaningful and connect to the real workflows and create real value. You want to make sure that it actually sits square inside of it. And so our strategy has been to be very deliberate about where AI is really foundational versus where it's additive. And I'll give you a couple examples of that. So foundational versus additive, and to embed it into our workflows that drive basically time to value. So let me give you a compare and contrast. So as I mentioned, Careerminds is made up of both an outplacement business and basically a job architecture business. So under Careerminds, we have a product called Careerminds. It's actually our company name is Careerminds, and then our product application is called Careerminds. In Careerminds, it's not a pre-AI application. In fact, what we've done is we've embedded AI capabilities in the core participant workflows. And we've done that by taking our consumer application called Career.io and actually in white labeling it and enabling it into the basically Careerminds platform. So now when participants actually start to engage with us, they're engaging with a coach. We're working with them to actually update their resumes and their profile, their LinkedIn profile data, their bios, their cover letters, all of the core materials that they need to be out there. We're helping them work through their job search strategy, and we're helping them in their interview prep. And all of these tools that we've integrated into the Careerminds application allow our coaches to not only guide them, but also use these tools inside of basically the platform to execute their plan, right? And so we've enabled AI into the core participant workflows, and we've integrated that with how our coaches provide guidance in the services that are, and so
Mhm.
really AI in the context of Careerminds, the application has been more about augmenting the human support, which I think Neville Wesley said something really important earlier too, which is like the human doesn't actually get removed from this. It's not like the machine is just going to provide the value all in, right? The human being, whether it's in product management itself, like doing the function of product management and leveraging AI tools, or actually in the case of our Careerminds product, the coach is a instrumental part of actually creating the value for the customers. And so on the Careermind side, that's what we've done. We've actually integrated a lot of our Career.io AI capabilities into the Careerminds application. Now, the other product that we have in that portfolio is called Progression.
Mhm.
And Progression is more of a job architecture and career framework application, really to help organizations, get the right structure in place, and then how do you nurture and grow your talent through that process. Here, we're introducing a workforce intelligence application inside of Progression, or I should say, workforce intelligence service inside of that Progression application. And the strategy is totally different. AI isn't really enhancing that workflow. It's actually foundational. It is the service. And so being able to actually normalize data, infer skills, service like career mobility, do role designs, measure basically where talent is growing and where it actually needs to be grown inside of an organization is all part of what this workforce intelligence service is. And here it is, I would call native to basically that application. And so rather than thinking binarily about whether it should be an AI feature or AI native, our strategy has been to be really honest where AI fundamentally changes the value proposition and where it meaningfully accelerates the delivery. And both of these can work across any number of basically HR systems, my perspective.
I think that really clarifies a lot of things. And it also makes the role of the product management very critical because they need to think whether what they're building and the use case that's there, whether it's AI native or it's part of that existing workflow where it needs to be augmented in a way. If you get that wrong, probably you'll spend a lot of dollars changing it and then probably, make make a mistake there or, make it difficult for end customers. That's how I kind of understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, executing quickly and learning fast and being able to adjust. AI gives you the ability to do that in a much more rapid way. But it is I would say it's core to how we think about building products in the 21st century. It's now really core to make sure that you have intelligence embedded into your applications, regardless of what markets you're treating, B2C or B2B.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, that's also an interesting point. Yeah, let me bring in Neville on this topic and maybe ask his experience. Like, I'm sure, you're getting this constant push from the board as well as the exec team in terms of, why are you not bringing in new AI native platforms and, and changing how we do the whole HR and so forth. So how do you prioritize from a buy standpoint? AI native platforms, AI layered as a part of like add-on features. Any specific drivers that or preferences in terms of for these products I will do this and this products I will do something else?
It's a tough one, Shrikant. And I'd probably sit on the fence and say it depends. But rather than saying native AI native versus AI layering, like I said in my earlier question, I think it's more about the time to value. How quickly can I start seeing benefit? But given a choice, I would use a couple of parameters to make my decision. And the first one would be, what kind of a system am I using today? Another system is it's robust. I've got good data hygiene. The workflows are robust, they're stable. I've got strong APIs that can connect with other systems. Then I would consider AI layering as a good option. To give you an example, at Harbinger, we've built multiple AI agents that plug into our existing HR systems and processes. And that's because our existing HR systems and processes have good data hygiene and good workflows. So these kind of AI agents actually help our software engineers improve their communication skills. So we have AI agents that are helping people in the talent acquisition team during the hiring process. So they're sitting on top of our existing HR platform. And that's only because our platform is robust. It's got APIs that we could integrate. And we've seen, like I said, time to value again. We've seen time to value come out anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks without undergoing a complete rehaul of the system and a change management process. So that's one deciding factor I would use. But on the flip side, Shrikant, if my core HR system was never designed for HR, for AI, if it was a very basic, system of record, where with very few basic workflows, a lot of the outputs were Excel generated, and then you got to churn those Excel sheets to get some insights. Then I would definitely think about completely rehauling the system and just switching completely to a fully AI native, because the system is just not going to work. The architecture of my existing system is so basic, it just won't support the orchestration or the multi-agent orchestration, the insights, the reasoning that an AI system would come. So that would be something that I would look at, in terms of the system, whether my current system is ready for that or not. Another important factor that I would actually build into my decision would be, is my workforce ready for this? Do they have the AI mindset? Are they ready for the AI switch? Because if your managers are still kind of old school, if they're still struggling with basics, like I said, taking out Excel sheets, running pivot tables, crunching data, and being very happy about that, then shifting to a fully native AI platform will suddenly kind of shock them, and that may kind of create a bit of resistance. So in this situation, again, I think a step-by-step approach may be more appropriate. So if change readiness of your workforce is a problem, then maybe a gradual AI layering could be something that you could consider.
Great, great. Thanks, Neville. Thanks for sharing that perspective. And I'm sure if there are practitioners in the audience, they probably, rather than just jumping and, to completely buying a new AI first native product, they also look at their workforce and their readiness to adapt to something like that. And also look at the different workflows. And somewhere, like Christian also mentioned, there may be AI native use cases, and that may be ideal, but
Yes.
in other cases, it's probably augmenting it. So,
Yeah.
so, so, so thanks for sharing that. Christian, one more point that's of interest, and many people have this question when it comes to any new technology out there, right? Will AI have a greater impact when it comes to B2B software or business to consumer SaaS platforms? So where will it cause the maximum probably impact or disruption, either way you look at? And since you're unique because you have, as Careerminds, a B2B platform, and with the career.io and the recruitment platform, you have a B2C model as well. So you are probably doing both. I'm sure you have some perspective on this.
It's a great question. And I think my answer is kind of both and, but I'll elaborate on it a little bit. From my perspective, I think AI moves faster in consumer products. And the reason why is because, you've got audiences that have a lot more, they're more basically acceptable be more forgiving of basically things not necessarily being as accurate. You've got speed and scale, right? You can get more rapid feedback loops. You can reduce the friction. You can create both real and perceived value much quicker, and you can measure at scale, right? And so there's a lot of repeatable use cases that allow you to actually gain a lot of data and insights quicker, and there's just less risk tolerance associated on the consumer side. And so what I think about with the consumer side is it's a laboratory, right, of sorts, as we're learning about what really resonates for consumers and what adds real value. Interview prep is a wonderful example, right, that crosses over. Like, how do you create conversational interview preparation capabilities that actually feel like you're really creating an interview that you're rehearsing and preparing? Because interviews need to be rehearsed, and they need preparation. You need to be very confident in the way in which you handle it. You need to anticipate what types of questions a particular company might ask you. You know, the famed basically Google interviews, or the famed Apple interviews, or the Amazon interviews, right? That all kind of take different tracks and stuff. And if you're actually looking to go to work for one of those types of organizations, how well are you prepared to be able to answer that? That's a really good example. And you can learn quickly when you put that in front of lots of consumers, as an example. But that said, I think there's more value, more durable value that gets created in the enterprise platform. And because at the end of the day, the enterprise platform is really how businesses actually operate and how decisions get made, and actually has, I think, a much bigger, longer term impact. It has bigger consequences for the decisions that do get made using AI as basically a driver of insights and of guidance. And so for me, the enterprise AI is also harder, right? I think that's the other thing. And I think Neville mentioned this, or maybe you did, Shrikant, that, you know, there's governance and trust and basically change management that all have to go into play to actually really make enterprise work. And when you nail all those things and you change the way a business actually operates and thinks about approaching it, you create a really sustainable, long-term, durable value for the business. So I do think that the greater impact, the longer term, is actually in AI, agentic AI, and basically AI enablement within the enterprise portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree now that you mentioned it, saying that the scale at which you can do it from the consumer side, and the fast iteration and the tolerance also for some mistakes and stuff like that, makes it easier for you to deploy
Correct.
AI software for B2C. But of course, monetizing it and making sure there's real value out of it can always be a challenge. But if you get the enterprise use case right and you really nail it with AI, then that's probably going to be a much bigger transformation that you can drive across the industries, or industry, if you will. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate that, you know, we have an organization that has a large scale audience on the consumer side that we can learn quickly from.
True.
And then we're taking those services and embedding them into our basically outplacement business that allow for us to actually add value to the enterprise offerings that we offer to to companies.
Sure. So we should be calling you again and again, because you learn faster than us. True. Neville, moving to you, and I think you're running, I know, quite a few AI pilots. You mentioned that also. So, and I'm sure you're running it, you not as an organization-wide initiative for everything. So you're seeing some evidences before you roll it out.
Yeah.
And if you can share some examples of what evidences once they get enabled, that then you are okay to roll it across the enterprise, saying that, okay, now this particular AI product or feature is ready for mainstream. Any examples, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, there are so many demos on offer. Sometimes you don't know which one to kind of to go for. And the AI pilots and the AI demos sometimes look like that. What's the word? The bright shiny object. They're like they're sleek, they are impressive. There's that wow factor. It's exciting. But exciting is one thing and showing evidence is the other thing. So when I'm actually evaluating AI software, I would look for the evidence and not necessarily the excitement or the wow factor. And there are two or three parameters I would definitely have in my checklist, which I would use for evaluation, Shrikant. The first one is, like I've said before, time to value. How quickly can I see business impact? And I would look at, if you ask me personally, I would look at anywhere between maybe 6 to 12 weeks to start seeing some impact. So if I can see impact, for example, time to hire, if my time to hire goes down by 20-25%, as compared to 3 months ago because of AI workflows that are helping basic questions during the preliminary discussions or interviews with the candidates, which are now handled by a bot, which would have been handled by a human earlier. Or if scheduling, which is a big deal, takes up a lot of time, if scheduling can be taken care by a bot, or if assessments and evaluations can be taken care by a bot, those are things which I would look at quick wins, and look at the measurable impact very fast. Another aspect is performance. If I can actually demonstrate and show that by using AI, the time spent by managers is down by 30-40%. One-on-ones are automatically scheduled. Managers get nudges about productivity of team members. It helps them conduct a more efficient one-on-one meeting. I think that would be really useful for me to show. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that, on the user adoption front. So I want managers, I want my talent acquisition team, I want my software engineers, I want them to use AI by default, and I don't want them to be forced. And I want them to use it by default because it makes their work easier. Another example of Harbinger is when we built this AI agent that I spoke about, that simulated customer interview. The adoption was super. It just shot through the roof, and it was because it was so simple to use. The prep time was reduced. It improved people's confidence, and that for me was a strong signal of adoption because developers loved using it. You would do the interview, you would get the assessment, you'd get suggested learnings on the spot. So that for me was a quick win and quick demonstratable thing. I think another one is responsible AI. We keep on hearing that term. So I want assurance when I roll out an AI across the organization. I want assurance that it's transparent. I know how the insights are getting generated. I really want to make sure that bias checks are in place. That's very important. I want to make sure that my data is secure. My data is not compromised. And I want to make sure that the decisions can be audited, the model can be trained. So those are, I would kind of term those as AI guardrails. And the final point would be that, does is it in the flow of work? Does AI live in the flow of work? For example, if you have to log into another platform, do a single sign-on, get your passcode on your mobile phone, I mean, it's just a waste of time. People will not use that. But if the AI agent sits in, your Jira, your Outlook, your HR system, your learning management system, then I think people will be more inclined to use that tool. So those are some of the parameters I would kind of look at. And the litmus test would be very simple. My litmus test would be, if I'm running a pilot and I switch off the pilot, would people protest, saying, "Hey, put it back on again"? And if the answer is yes, they would protest, because they feel the difference in speed, whatever, clarity, production, productivity. Then there would be a very, very clear indication for me that AI is working. People are seeing the output, and it's ready for an organizational wide deployment. That pilot is ready to kind of roll out across the organization.
Yeah. Makes so you're saying the outcomes are not forced, you're actually seeing it and people are asking for more. I think that's important. While also all the data and guardrails and all those assurances you have,
That's a given,
uh,
yeah.
that's also important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Almost feature entry. Yeah.
I think balancing that is important, and I think it's great that we're thinking about all these aspects when rolling out new software. And with AI, obviously, there is this whole governance and guardrails challenge also that comes up,
Yeah.
which is because of its probabilistic and training nature. It's hard
Mm.
to figure out than traditional software. So obviously, you got to be
And hallucinations are real.
correct.
They do happen. So
They do
you
happen.
need someone looking over the AI shoulder all the time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, thanks, Neville, for sharing that. But Christian, one last question to you. Probably making you think more from a product management perspective, and I'm sure there are people who are in that field would be interested. Seeing that, what are the AI tools that you really recommend from a pro to get more efficiency out of product management? And are there other business outcomes other than efficiency that one should be looking at when you look for AI tools for your day-to-day work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we can juxtapose this whole concept of like, are the HR buyers actually decide, how do they decide, right? There's a lot of paralysis around when you actually talk to vendors about whether or not they're actually can really bring the value that they purport in some of the tools that they've actually created. And we see some of this in people all have some AI functionality to their tooling today, whether it's Jira, Notion, Mixpanel, and so forth. And you really have to understand whether or not these tools are really adding value or if it's just kind of thin layer stuff that you're dealing with. And so we start with here at our organization, we start with proficiency around ChatGPT, particularly as our, OpenAI is our primary, basically LLM for a lot of the work that we do on the product side today. We have a strategic partnership with them and so forth. Our engineering team, on the other hand, really builds code via Claude, right? So they're using Anthropic and Claude to actually do a lot of the software development today. That said, when we think about the tools that we're using, so we make sure that everybody's really in the product side is proficient with the core LLMs, and there we're using it to do everything from like building out requirements. We use Notion to kind of lay out basically our PRDs, right? And then we've been testing Notion AI as a tool set for how to facilitate that. But what we found was that actually we get better outcomes just going right into GPT and actually honing the requirements there, getting use cases right, getting basically the test cases right, success criteria right, et cetera, right? So we're using ChatGPT in that regard for a lot of our kind of foundational, basically product management. However, we are picking tools. So we picked a tool called Windy, which is essentially a customer discovery and insights kind of a platform. And what this gives us the ability to do is very quickly glean and synthesize qualitative data at scale that allows us to actually understand like what's happening. So we take both the data, so we use it to do user testing of designs and prototyping to kind of glean insights quicker and faster. And then we take feedback that we have from our applications and feed it into Windy to kind of synthesize that qualitative data into output. And so what that means in terms of better outcomes for us is we get better product roadmap prioritizations, we get better detection of things that could be churn drivers or gaps that we get that a lot quicker. So along those same lines, our product people are using Figma Make to actually do the prototype. So we're not actually waiting for our design team to actually build a prototype, get it to a level of like low fidelity kind of a wire we can actually have our product people, and one of our product managers, we started with Lovable, but we're a Figma shop. So we started with Lovable, and we like Lovable. There's nothing wrong with Lovable, but for us, it's a great point of decision making. Is like use the tools that you have, and so we're looking at Figma Make, and so our product people are building prototypes, running them through basically Windy, and getting user feedback quicker. So that helps with alignment around what it is that we're building and how we're building it. And then I would say two other points I would make. We're using a lot of AI for copy and content, right? On the site, we're sensitive to making sure that it's not Google's not penalizing that content, from a pure AI generated content generation. So we do overlay basically the human element on it, but we can get a lot done a lot faster by using AI to actually kind of build the copy into our applications, right? So there's that. And then the last point I would make is we're using Mixpanel today for all of our user behaviors and product analytics. And we are using their tools to democratize the information. So people don't have to necessarily know the events by name and how they're architected. You can actually query the basically Mixpanel and get out the outputs that you want. So it democratizes that. All of this is in the spirit of actually better alignment, faster execution, better cross-team collaboration, better basically product prioritization and road mappings, and reacting to the market quicker. Basically, because it's just always a build, test, learn kind of like an approach. We hardly ever get it right with one swing at the bat, going up the bat and hitting a home run on a product. Never, right? All the years I've been doing this, it's a build, test, learn, and the feedback loops, shortening the feedback loops is immensely valuable to basically product.
Yeah, makes sense. I think we can do a whole discussion on this topic. You've mentioned so many tools, and I think within the product management or any function, it's not just using OpenAI or one particular product and only using that for your performance gains. But you could, if you weave all these technologies together, you can innovate faster, you can collaborate better, and so forth. So that all that makes a lot of sense. Christian, thanks for sharing that. I think in the interest of time, I'll probably quickly jump to a quick summary. I think we've had a fabulous discussion on what HR tech buyers are looking for in terms of time to value from the products, as well as how AI is kind of accelerating that whole transformation. Now, however, for the specific points we touched upon in terms of pricing models and things like that, buyers' expectation, it seems like there is more opportunity to do consumption-based pricing over pure outcome-based pricing. There may be use cases for that, but maybe there is more demand for consumption-based pricing. Then overall, it's not an AI native only play out there. So you need to probably make sure you choose well. Where's AI native play absolute must vis-a-vis, where, you can add AI to your existing products like existing workflows or technology. You probably need to again price AI in a measurable way so that adoption or buyers are willing to pilot them and run it and execute them. Else it'll be difficult, and you need to cover, like Neville mentioned, all the bells and whistles around AI, not only just from a feature standpoint but from a guardrails and all that perspective if you want it to become mainstream. And finally, as Christian alluded, the whole product lifecycle management, irrespective whether you're building B2B software, B2C software, there's uniqueness associated with where you can use AI more versus less, but sustainably better. But the whole tools can definitely change and give you a market advantage if you choose the right ones in your product engineering and product management. So So on that note, let me say thank you to Christian, Neville, and very quickly give you a note about Harbinger. We are a product engineering and content engineering company helping customers transform how they work and learn. We've been in business for over 30 years, and we are passionate about HR, technology, and yeah, right now how AI is transforming it. So glad to bring this discussion to all of you. We have released HR tech trends for 2026. If you are interested, do go and download that from our website, and it will also be available. The link will be also available on the chat. So, and do share your thoughts on what you think about it. And last but not least, I'm opening it up for questions. If there are anything out there that we can take, we'll do that over the next minute or so. I know we're just at the top of the hour, but once again, thank you to Christian and Neville. Let me look at the chat if there's any questions out there. Okay, there's one question by Daya Ogale. It's about AI intervention. We heard it's being introduced in various HR functions. How do you plan to strike a balance between human intelligence and AI intelligence? I mean, question probably is from the perspective of, are there certain HR functions where it makes more sense, or there's going to be a balance in every function between HR and AI driven, between human intelligence and AI driven outcomes? Christian, you want to take that?
It's a good question. Yeah, so I think, for me, the human intelligence equates to empathy and human connection that I think can never be lost in the context of an HR function and role. We are still in the people business, and there's something to be said about just making sure that we don't let it become so mechanical or so kind of structural that we lose the human element of that. And this particularly holds true in the space that we operate in. We believe that our coach is the coaching services that we provide are the most important asset that we have in terms of, because if you think about it, people have lost their jobs, and so they're uncertain, they're frustrated, they're scared, they're displaced. And the most important thing is not to just throw them at a basically system and say, just follow the prompts, follow the instructions. They need the warm embrace of basically a human being who's going to give them the empathy and the sensitivity and the guidance that we need. Shrikant, I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but we've taken our outplacement business and we've also made it a consumer product.
Yeah.
And we actually sell it to individuals who are not part of an enterprise, but actually have been displaced by any number of organizations that and we're helping them through that. So my point here is the human intelligence can never be replaced by the AI. It's a combination of both of those things.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. And thanks. I know we could have touched about how you have transformed a B2B product to a consumer facing product as well, but I think we don't have the time today. We'll definitely cover that as a part of another discussion. I think since we are over for about 4 to 5 minutes, I'll probably close the session now. Thanking everybody who attended and also engaged with us. It's been a pleasure bringing this topic and discussion with you. And last but not the least, Christian, Neville, thanks for patiently going through your thoughts and experience. I mean, it's been immensely valuable. I appreciate that.